Hello everybody, my name is Sarah Olson and today I'm going to be talking to you about cults in a presentation called How Could You? Extremist Cults and the People Behind Them. So first off, what is a cult? Well, according to the book Cults That Kill, cults are defined as groups of people who have joined together for an ideological cause, such as religion, politics, science fiction, or self-improvement, and they're under the total control of a charismatic leader to whom they're completely devoted. Usually they isolate themselves from outsiders, news, and media to avoid conflicting viewpoints with whatever their cult supports. They're often a very tight-knit group. Their leader may be alive or dead, free or in prison, and they are always right. They have exclusive important information and they cannot be questioned. Now, the picture on top, that kind of looks like a cult, but that's not. That's the picture from Indiana Jones. The one on the bottom where everyone's looking at the cute little baby, that's an actual cult. Cults are not always what they seem. So why do people join cults? Well, they don't. They join self-improvement groups or professional development groups or churches or new friend groups or alternative medicine therapy groups or political groups. Because if they just hung up a sign that says cult meeting today, no one would come. Murder, suicides, and sex slavery are not mentioned at the first meeting or any meeting for that matter. So what kind of people join cults? Well, they can be anyone, and I mean anyone, like including you and me, but there are some patterns. Like they tend to be in a transition or crossroads in their lives. They may be struggling for success or seeking answers. They're often trusting or naive, idealistic, in need of friends and wanting approval. However, despite stereotypes, they are not necessarily stupid or gullible, weak-willed, or from broken homes. So the premise of a tight-knit family group sounds nice. So what's the harm? Well, first off, there's severe abuse and exploitation of victims, including children. That may be physical, sexual, or psychological, or all three. They're often deprived of food, sleep, or medications, or they may be given unsafe drugs like hallucinogens or alternative medications. They may be forced to listen to sermons all day and night, which is actually terrible for your mental health. It may just seem annoying or inconvenient, but it is used as a form of mental torture if you listen to a song or a noise on repeat for an extended period of time. They may also promote suicide, have branding or fraud. They may threaten you or others and give you a complete absence of choice. So that's pretty awful, but we're not done yet. There's also gaslighting and solitary confinement and torture tactics and tax evasion, and they may force you to renounce family, friends, possessions, and identity and cut off communication with everyone on the outside. In fact, they often do. There are also strict requirements and bans on aspects of your life, such as relationships, which must be approved by the cult. And sometimes you even need permission to have a child. And if you get pregnant without permission, you may be punished. You may be forced to have an abortion or to go on birth control or be abstinent for the foreseeable future. And if you do dare to have a child born without the cult's blessing, they'll tell you that that child is going to hell, which is no way for a kid to grow up or for people to talk about your child. So is that what I mean by extremist cults? Well, sadly, no. All those things are terrible, and not every cult employs every single thing, but some extremist cults go even farther than too far, such as human or animal sacrifice in the Santa Muerte cult or Solar Temple, or murder in the Manson family, or the People's Temple, often referred to as Jonestown, or the Vampire Clan. There's also mass suicide, such as the People's Temple, where almost 1,000 people died, or Heaven's Gate in child abuse and Word of Faith Fellowship or the FLDS cults, mutilation and torture from the Anthill Kids, or sex slavery and branding from Nexium. So that sounds really bad. Why not just leave? Well, it's less of an open door and more of a boarded up door. It's complicated. They may be brainwashed as true believers, have a dependence on their cult as a family, especially after they've alienated their former family and friends. So they may not have anyone to go home to or any home at all because they may be in a communal living situation. There are also years of lawsuits that may come up if you try and threaten a cult, and they will make threats against you. They may release collateral that they forced you to give them, such as explicit pictures or false admissions of child abuse. People also conveniently go missing, and defectors are told that they'll be punished with illness or going to hell, etc. They may have also spent all of their money on the cult and therefore be broke and not be in a financial position to be able to leave. Often people lose their identity, relationships, and possessions to the cult, so they don't have anything to fall back on. They may also be far away from where they call home, in a different state or country or even continent, like the People's Temple, who uprooted their people from California and moved them to Guyana, in an unsettled jungle area in South America. And we're not done yet. Some people think that if they leave now, they'll have wasted their time. They may be told that there's no second chance to come back if they leave. They may also think that things will get better if they just hang in there for a little bit longer, and that the only valid choices are to the benefit of the group. They may think it's too late to back out now, like in Heaven's Gate, where they filmed exit statement videos before their suicides, saying that they were going to commit suicide and they were doing it of their own free will, and they fully supported the group's cause. And if you've already done that and you're just about to commit suicide now, well, it feels a little late for second thoughts. Also, there's a societal stigma against current and ex-cult members, and a few people understand. There's also cult member interference, such as blasting, where people yell and scream and punch you, trying to get rid of your devils. Or love bombing, where people hug you and compliment you and tell you that they love you so much to try and make you feel like you're wanted and to want to stay. Also, some people are minors under the age of 18. They may have been born to the cult or brought in as children by their parents. They have to be returned to their parents legally if they try and run away. Sometimes they might try for emancipation, but that's really hard to get even if you know how to go about it. And if they make claims of abuse, which is a big if the prosecution can't find any evidence, then they're kind of out of luck. Also, some parents may be worried about the custody of their children and possessions, which they've been forced to sign over to cult leadership or members, such as in the People's Temple, where they were forced to make false admissions of child abuse. Or Shauna Muse from Word of Faith Fellowship, who believed that she was signing medical forms for her children when she accidentally signed away custody of them. So that has to be illegal. So why not just call the police? Well, it's complicated. Again, there's a severe lack of motivation for them to do anything about it. They have threats for both the members and law enforcement, and there may be penance for members, both those involved and those not involved. There's also a stigma against outsiders that they're the bad guys and they don't understand and they'll do terrible things to you, and years of drawn out court battles. It's often very difficult to get proof, and many groups, especially church groups, would claim religious freedom. Law enforcement might say they'll get around to it someday, just not today or any time in the near future. And a lot of people have a fear of making police reports. Plus, some police reports are made and they never get filed. There's a statute of limitations for most crimes, and they kind of just drag their feet until that runs out. And there's a big burden of proof, which they can't always meet because a lot of cults cover their tracks very well. Investigators might also conveniently go missing or be killed. And if anyone's running for re-election, the cult has major voting clout, so they really don't want to go up against them. So why don't other people speak out? If it's hard for the members, it's hard for law enforcement. Well, it's hard for others too. There's defamation and slander lawsuits. Often the abuse that goes on inside of cults is a well-kept secret from outsiders, and the cult will strongly deny it if you ever accuse them of it. There's a lack of a platform to get awareness out there, and people may go missing or be hurt. Like a guy named Nagoka, who held a support group for parents whose children were a part of the Shinriko cult. He was poisoned with nerve gas and almost died, and over 20 years later, he still suffers lasting effects, all because he had a support group. There's also a lot of fear around this. And despite all of it, some people do, but sometimes it's not enough. Like Catherine Oxenberger and Sarah Edmondson, who were instrumental in bringing down the leader of the Nexium cult, even though part of the Nexium cult still operates today. Some people may offer advice or legal counsel or halfway houses or connecting ex-members or emotional and financial support. So who runs these things anyways? Well, they're often very charismatic, they're good speakers, they're good with people, not necessarily good people, but good with people. They're charming, they may be intimidating, they may cast themselves as divine, saying that they got this word directly from God, and they're giving it directly to you, so you must listen to it. They often don't fit into mainstream society and were likely rejected in their early lives, such as Charles Manson, whose mom actually traded him for a pitcher of beer once. They may have a history of animal cruelty, which has escalated from animals to humans. They may suffer from mental illness or an inability to empathize, such as antisocial personality disorder, which is also referred to as psychopathy. They may be on drugs, legal or illegal, or not taking prescribed medications that they should be taking. So, putting this all together, what kind of tactics do cults use? Well, they often have strict lifestyles for their members to ensure control over them and to weed out people who are not true believers. They often victim blame, or in the case of Nexium, say there are no victims at all. They may control every aspect of their lifestyle, or at least a lot of them, seclude members from outsiders emotionally and physically sometimes if a communal living or compound situation is involved. They make members dependent on the cult and alienate their former friends and family. They also keep them very busy so they don't have any time for doubts or exploration away from the cult. There's also a constant repetition of beliefs to hammer it into people's heads until it feels like their own ideas, and they will go to extreme lengths to justify abuse. So that sounds really bad, but we're not done yet. They also avoid and deny accusations of wrongdoing. They may dictate your appearance through your hair, clothes, or mannerisms. They convince members that their membership is an honor and a privilege, and they threaten to punish or kick out members at any moment, so they're eager to please. They may also threaten your loved ones and friends, such as in Nexium, where they have group penance. So if one member of the group does something wrong, the whole group suffers for it. You may be willing to take those consequences on yourself, but not to put others in that kind of situation. They also may have severely high donation requirements, where the rich especially fund cult endeavors, legal defense, and showering leaders with gifts, whether they want to or not. And everything good is cast as a gift from the cult, whereas everything bad is punishment for breaking the rules, so they can redirect feelings to support cult mentality. And we're still not done. I'm sorry. There's also mob mentality where you think, well, if everyone else is doing, then why shouldn't I? There's partnering people to keep others in line, to get people to report on their fellow members and make them feel never safe to talk about their true feelings and very paranoid. They also have excessive documentation sometimes, such as filming everything and logging every moment of every day, which comes in handy if you're trying to prosecute them, but makes them feel like they're constantly being watched and they should never, ever have a toe out of line. They may also not offer you any free choice whatsoever. Like in Heaven's Gate, they were supposed to take 6-minute showers using 1 gallon of water. They had assigned seating in the living room. They were told to shave upwards and not downwards, and even their pancake size was regulated. It was very extreme. They also may require people to speak in code, such as in Nexium, where DOS means Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which is Latin for Lord over the obedient female companions, and members may be given new names. So are there any legal protections against this? Well, thankfully, yes. France has something called the abuse of weakness, which makes it a misdemeanor for cult leaders to exploit and abuse others. Some cults are designated as terrorist organizations, and law enforcement may not be able to nab cult leaders for some things, but they can still make their lives difficult by prosecuting others. Think Al Capone and how he was taken down for tax evasion instead of murder. There may also be government intervention, such as with Jonestown when they sent Congressman Leo Ryan and the press to go check out what was happening and possibly rescue people. However, unfortunately, things like that may backfire. It may be harder to get people out. You can't forcibly remove people, although that's morally questionable. It has worked in the past. And minors are often kept in even if they don't want to be. You also cannot pursue legal charges on behalf of another person. So it all comes down to their willpower and resources to do it themselves. But they all get shut down eventually, right? I'm sorry, no. A lot of times they're renamed and rebranded, like Shinriko is now called Alep. There's also denial of any and all wrongdoing for the cult side. There are still true believers. The leaders may lead from jail or they may be replaced, such as Warren Jeffs, who leads the FLDS cult from jail. The cult may go underground. You might need to know a member for inside access so they can make sure that you're not some spy going in to check it out. They may not be accepting new members at all. Nexium, Alep, Word of Faith Fellowship, and the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the FLDS, are all active cults who are doing very well right now. Wow, that's really depressing, but is there any hope at all? Yes, there is. You can educate yourself and be persistent and always use critical thinking. Never view yourself or someone else as too smart to fall for a cult, and listen to others when they say they're concerned about you. Make yourself heard and demand action from police and politicians. Collect evidence if you're in a situation where you can do that. Make a lot of noise, cults hate that. And keep up the momentum because they will wait for you to get tired. And if you're so inclined, write a book or a play or a movie or a TV show about this kind of stuff. And tell me about it because I want to read/watch it. Can ex-cult members heal? Yes, they can. And different things will help different people because we're all individuals with our own unique thoughts, experiences, and emotions. And it's not easy. Parts of them may never heal, but there's definitely hope that they can heal. Some people choose to go to therapy, or they may work on their friends and family relationships, especially if they've been damaged by the cult. There is a process called deprogramming, and one of the most famous deprogrammers, named Ted Patrick, whose son was recruited into the Children of God cult in 1971, and he deprogrammed upwards of 1,000 people. It's also important to cut off contact with toxic cult culture and realize that you're a victim and a survivor. Also, some people might like to take up hobbies such as art, running, or baking. So after all of that, you deserve some good news. There are also some really great things that have happened, like when Nexium leader Keith Rainier was sentenced to 120 years in prison for all the horrible things that he did, or John David Cooper, who was born into the Word of Faith Fellowship cult, and his son Peyton were able to escape. Also, some people did survive the Jonestown Massacre, and in the bottom left corner, that's them meeting up on the 38th anniversary of the day when it happened. And the leader of the FLDS cult, Warren Jeffs, although unfortunately still running the cult, was sentenced to life in prison. So where did I find all of this great information? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Feel free to pause the video and look at all of the resources I have on the screen. Thanks for watching.